Hey everyone, welcome to the Intelligent Conversations podcast, where we believe everyone has a form of intelligence that resides within them. Our goal is to encourage these type of conversations for our audience to listen to. Without further ado, welcome to the show. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Intelligent Conversations podcast. Today I have the honor to speak with Roger Williams. Roger has over 30 plus years in the teaching field and has recently decided that's not how he wants people to remember him. He currently helps people create and complete items on your bucket list. Roger is one to be intentional about life and hopes that he can help you achieve the same thing. So Roger, thank you for coming on today. But I want to dive right into this. What kind of motivated you to shift from teaching, youth development to all the way to what you're doing today?
Yeah, so back in 2020, in the midst of lockdown and having a little bit more time to think about things and not be able to go out and do stuff, I also had a heart attack December 2020. And coming out of that, I really just was asking, how do I define myself? And throughout the 50 years of my life, that I had defined myself by what I did and who I worked for. And so I just really wanted to reclaim that and say, okay, well, what is it that I want to be? How do I want to be known by? And so I literally went to all my socials, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, everything, and just said, I am now the head crossover of my bucket list. And that's what I want to be known for. When people ask me what I do, I say, cross stuff on my list. So it was just a big change of finding, where do I find my self-worth, and not finding it in the 40, 50 hours that I sell somebody as labor, but really saying, okay, well, I've got, after sleep and work, I got 70, 80 hours. I want to be known for those 70, 80 hours. I don't want to be known for those 40 or 50.
Okay. Yeah. That's awesome story. Thank you for sharing that. That was, it kind of reminded me, as you were talking about that. I think a lot of people, I mean, especially my audience, they're in this point in their life where they're deciding, what am I going to do with my life, right? And some of the things that I think come up is things like you said, like, all right, what's my bucket list? So I know this is pretty basic, but how would you help someone organize and structure a bucket list? Do you just write it down, or does it need to be actionable goals?
Yeah, definitely the last thing you said is super important. I don't pretend to know what people should put on their bucket list or how they should create them. Everyone's got different ones. I have a friend that just has a bucket list of wanting to play at a golf course in all 50 states in the United States. Like, that's his list. There's nothing else on his list. That's his list. My list is like seriously diverse and crazy in lots of different aspects, but at the same time, most of the stuff on my list has to do with community and building community of some kind. So it's all, everybody's list is different. The biggest thing I would say is just write it down, right? We go through life, especially when you're young like yourself and you've got all these things you're doing and trying to figure out where you're going, we forget just to make the simple list, right? And those things get lost because there's so many other things grabbing for our attention, whether it's social media or it's our jobs or whatever it is. There's so many things that family are just begging for our attention that take us away from our ability to, like, remember that, oh yeah, I said I wanted to do that, right? Or I said I thought that would be cool. So one of the things that I did after I changed my my job title was to actually sit down and create a list and there have been lots of things in my head, like you said, tons of stuff in my head. But I wrote down a list and I put it on my mirror in my bathroom, and so every morning I see it. It's my to-do list. And so, I'm like, okay, what's the next thing? How am I going to accomplish these tasks? And like you said, it has to be actionable, right? Dream boards or vision boards or all that kind of stuff. I mean, I think they have their place in motivation, which is great, but actually having a list that you can actually cross something off and feel like I accomplished something is just so empowering, right? It's just,
oh yeah.
I mean, that was empowering in my job, like in my day-to-day job of just making a list every day of saying, okay, what I need, and you're crossing those things off, like, oh, I accomplished stuff today. And so I kind of took that principle into this bucket list idea of just like, you know what? I need to be able to cross them off. And the story that I tell is saying live from New York at Saturday Night Live is something that I've always thought would be like the coolest thing in the world to do, right? Is to be on that
Yeah.
stage on that cold open skit and being able to say those words. The reality is there's less than 1,000 people that have ever lived that have said those words. Less than 1,000 people. So my chance of being able to say that pretty slim, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I have people push back and go, well, don't kill your dreams. It's like that's what it is. It's a dream, and it can still be a dream, but having it be actuated is completely something different. So something that is on my bucket list is that I would like to be an extra in a Star Wars TV or movie, and I think I could probably get that done. I mean, throw a stormtrooper helmet on me,
There you go.
put me in a Jabba mask. I don't have to be seen. I don't have to have speaking parts. Just I want to be on set, and I want to do something and want to be able to just say I did that. So I think I could probably get that done. Like if I could really put some time and energy into it, I think I know enough people in LA. I know people. I know the business. I could probably make my way onto that set somehow. But just but that's actionable, right? I mean, like if I want to do it, I could do it. Sitting here saying, how do I get to say Saturday, live from New York, Saturday Night Live? Well, I have to be, I have to be a movie star like The Rock, or I have to be Tom Brady, or I have to be,
Yeah,
which
one of
is,
those crazy celebrities.
yeah, which is never going to happen. It's just not going to happen. So they need to be realistic and achievable. Like you said, it's really super important.
Yeah, I thank you for sharing that. I mean, some of those dreams, I'm one to I like to set my goals so high that
Mhm.
I almost like don't accomplish them. But I'm a lot farther than what I
Sure.
anticipated I would be later on. And it's funny you mentioned Star Wars. I'm actually a pretty big Star Wars fan as well. I'm into that stuff. So that's kind of just a
Mhm.
side note there. I think that's so cool. You want to be an extra. I'll be looking for you in the
In the
next
credits.
upcoming, yeah, the credits. I'll be
Yeah.
looking for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know you mentioned towards the beginning that there's a lot of distractions that kind of come
Mhm.
out. And how do you help, I guess, people really just hone in on what it is they really want? Because I think I've talked with a lot of kids, and some of them are like, yeah, this is a cool dream, but like,
Mhm.
how do I know what I actually want? Because once they start putting in the work, it's like, oh wait, I don't know if I actually want this. So what would be your
Right.
advice to help someone figure out what it is they actually want?
Yeah, I think some of the first steps when you're thinking about putting together a bucket list is what are you already into, right? So you're already into Star Wars. That could mean 1,000 different things, right? What are some of the things surrounding Star Wars? Is it to go to a premiere of one of the movies? Is it to be in London on May 4th, and go to the studios there where it was filmed? And what are some of the things you could think of that your stuff you're already into that would be fun or exciting, or that would, bring you joy, right? That's the biggest thing is it
Mm-hmm.
going to bring you joy? And so like I'm a huge professional wrestling fan. So it's like one of the things on my bucket list is I want to go to Mexico City and see a triple A lucha libre card at Arena Mexicali, right? That would just be super fantastic fun for me. And so there's several things on my bucket list that surrounds just just wrestling in general. And so but like you talked about my show, and people, I have people on that have done all different kinds of things, and that's kind of the purpose, right? I don't judge anybody's bucket list. I have someone that they had on their list to get Arnold Schwarzenegger's autograph. There was somebody that had on their list to raise $1 million through their artwork. They had somebody that wanted to learn how to tap dance over the age of 60, right? So it's all about just what you're into, and it doesn't matter what you're into, and you can't judge other people's bucket list. I had recently on my bucket list to get knuckle tattoos, right? And so I crossed that off. It's not probably going to be on everybody's bucket list because not everybody's going to be into knuckle tattoos, the pain or always being visible. So you have to like really look at the things that you're into and that you're already excited about, and say, how does that impact me, and how do I want to live that out, that fandom, if you want to call it that, or whatever it is. And then the other thing I'm really into right now is we're recommending to people to talk to other people about their bucket list, not to like get ideas and like be competitive and like I'm going to cross that off before you do. I mean, that's really American, I get it, but it's um But no, it's more of just like hearing people's process, right? Like, how did they come to, like, why was that on your list? And it's just like the show. It's like, why was that on your list? How did you get there? And how'd you cross it off? Or how are you planning on crossing it off? Those kind of things, just the process that people go through, I think you can learn from that. And so just having the conversation of what's on your bucket list. And some people might like, oh, I don't know, what's on yours? And it's like, I don't know. Well, let's figure it out. Let's talk about it. What would you like to have on your bucket list? Why would you, it's a great conversation to have with people, and it's funny to me that as I've taken this on in the last year, that I hear so many people around me now are talking to their friends about their bucket lists. And yeah, I was talking so and so, so they want to do this. I'm like, well, that's great, that's awesome. So I think that that's a real key too, is just talk to people about it, because a lot of people don't. And especially your age, for younger people, it's like you're so far off from thinking about death. And so
Yeah.
change it to life goal list, right? I don't even care what you call the list, right? It doesn't matter to me. So if you're younger and you want to just call it your life goal list, fantastic, and put stuff on it and cross it off, right? Again, it's about making it a priority to use those 70, 80 hours that are outside work and sleep to really define yourself and find your self-worth.
Yeah, I totally agree there. And I might add to that when they're setting up their life goal, you're continuing to add stuff on that list as you're living out
Correct.
your life.
Yes.
And I mean, as you get older, maybe your interests change, like, oh, maybe I'm more interested in doing this. And you start crossing off those things. I think, I mean, I can tell you're a happy person. I mean, it just leads to more joy in life, right?
Yes. Yeah,
And
exactly.
I want to ask you this though. A lot of things that I see, like maybe on some people's bucket lists, or they say
Mhm.
they want to do it, costs money, right? Like everything in this
Yep.
world, nothing comes for free. So how do
Yep.
they like fund some of these? Like they can't just always be in this mode of like, let's cross this off. Let's cross this off. How do you help them like get into that, like the funding to do some of these things on their bucket list?
Yeah, and I think it's a great question, and I've had it asked of me several times, and it all depends on the person, right? So like I'm on what I calling an adult gap year, right? I quit my job and I'm taking this year off, and the basic way to describe it to people who don't know what a gap year is, I'm just doing things that make me happy, right? That cost me a lot of money, and I had to take a bunch of money out of my retirement to get that done. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But before I did that, I crossed the Camino de Santiago off my bucket list. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but
Uh-uh.
it's a 790-kilometer walk across the northern Spain, and
Oh wow.
It starts in Saint Jean Pied de Port, and it ends in Santiago de Compostela, and it takes about 30 to 35 days, depending on how you do it. And so that's an expensive trip, especially if you're an American. A lot of my
Mm-hmm.
European friends, they'll like go down and do 2 weeks and then come back and do 2 weeks. And, they can do it in chunks because they live right there. Flights are easy, cheap, but for an American to do it, you have to outlay a big amount of money. You have to take a lot of vacation or be in transition or something. And it costs money. It's every day you're spending $50 to $60 a day over a 30-day period of time. That's a lot of money. And so I spent about a year every month putting away, $500. I live my life in such a way that it's small, and I can do that, right? I can put that $500 away every month and figured out how to, okay, well, now I've got enough money to buy my ticket. Now I have to fly there. Now I have enough money to get the train passes. Now I have enough money to set up some of the hotels I want to stay at. Now I have, and now I have enough money to buy the gear that I need. So, and planned it so that by the time I left, I had enough spending money built up so I could go. So, saving is one way to do it. A lot of it boils down to what I said, is how small do you live your life? What is, are things more important to you than experiences, or experiences and people more important than things? And that's so hard for Americans. It's just so freaking hard for Americans, because again, it's, where do you find your self-worth, right? Do you find your self-worth in the house or the car, and all those things? Because you spend that money, right? You're
Mm-hmm.
you're you're going to make money and you're going to spend it. The choice is how you spend it and what you spend it on. And so
Exactly.
I just encourage people to like prioritize experiences over things, and help them do that best they can.
Yeah, I agree there. I think, I mean, things don't really give you anything, whereas experiences, those are some of like memories last forever. Like you can always reminisce or be around the campfire saying, yo, you remember that time that we did
Oh
this and
yeah.
this and this? You can't really do that with a thing. It's just like, oh yeah, here's my 1945 vintage, whatever the coolest thing at that time is, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but I mean, I'll admit I am a little bit of a uh I mean, maybe that's just the American side of me talking. I am a little bit of a person that like, oh, that's a thing. That's actually something on my bucket list, and it's crazy, but I want to own a jet so I can travel the world, right? It's crazy,
Nothing
but I'm just
wrong.
like,
Well, but yeah, but there's tension behind that, right? It's not like you're gonna own a jet and park it in your driveway.
it's true.
Right. You want a jet for a purpose. Now I don't
Mhm.
want a jet, but it's okay if you want a jet, but you're not going to park it in your driveway, right? So that
Oh
people
yeah.
drive by and go, oh wow, they got a jet. That makes no sense whatsoever. But if your goal is to have a jet so that you can travel the world and see different places and hopefully maybe take some people with you, that would be cool too. That and build those memories. Man, more power to you. I mean, that's go for it. But it's again, it's that what's the most valuable to you. I try to live as small as I can. I do have a small comic book collection that dates back to 1958 that has about 1,200 comic books in it that I drag around with me all the time. Those are memories too, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that I did with that was it's almost like 4 issues away from it being a complete collection, and and so one of the things I did was about 10 years ago, I'm like, I'm going to just everywhere I go, everywhere I travel, I'm going to look for the comic book stores. I'm going to try to complete this collection. So there's memories behind
Hmm.
the places that I went. It's like that was my souvenir, right? If I
It,
went to
it,
Chicago, that became my souvenir. If I went to New York, that's my souvenir from New York. So it's got dual purposes. So I'm not saying you can't have things like that. I'm just saying that overall, we tend to, for your generation, it's like, how many pair of Yeezys can you own? How many pair of,
mhm.
Jordans do you need? It's like, and if that's your goal, great, but understand that that's all you're going to have from it. Right. And so there are other things out in the world, and, maybe you just need one pair of Jordans. You don't need, 50.
Exactly. It's the process of getting to that point.
Mhm.
I think the journey is way more enjoyable than the actual result. Sometimes, and
Yeah.
maybe that's kind of what you're getting at here, but like let's use my example here. The journey to get the jet, I bet there's gonna be
Right.
so many experiences that lead
Sure.
up to that. And then once I get there,
Sure.
I'll be like, oh cool, I have it. Whoop-de-doo.
Yeah.
But the
Right.
next thing, it's the process of getting there that I'll be like, man, this is so enjoyable. And you'll look back and again tell those stories to other people. Like, I
And
did
you
that.
did. Yeah, and you never know what that'll lead to, right? So I did the Camino de Santiago, and my intention, if you complete the whole thing or 100 kilometers of it, you get a certificate of completion, right? Which is so important for Americans to be
Yeah.
able to say, I did it, right? And some people go because it's a religious thing and they just want to see the old churches and be in that environment and walk the path that St. James body went. That's great too. For me, it was strictly the community. I wanted to go and build friendships with people around the world that I could maintain. And so, like, one of the things that happened was is I met this young couple. They were actually from Portland, but they had their wedding in Costa Rica. It was a small destination wedding, and they only invited like 50 people, and I crashed it.
Oh wow.
Yeah, about 4 weeks ago, I crashed their wedding. I knew where it was. I knew when it was, and my partner and I flew down there. We spent a week together, hanging out in Costa Rica, and then the Saturday of the wedding, we showed up right after all the important events happened, and they started the party. And I showed up, and I'm like, "Is it too late to object?" And the bride just went crazy. She screamed at the top of her lungs. She was just so excited that we were there, and thought that was the craziest thing in the world. And so it's like, that's something I never would have been able to do, which crashing
Mhm.
a wedding was on my bucket list, but it was like, oh, and we actually had the conversation with them on the Camino. A whole bunch of us were like, oh, we're all going to crash your wedding. And they're like, that'd be so funny. I'm like, all right, well, it's on. It's happening. So,
Yeah. Oh yeah. Challenge them right there. That's something. One.
yeah.
That's where I think me and you are similar. Once someone says, "Oh yeah, you can't do this," you're like, "All right, watch me." Like, I'll show you.
Hold my Mai Tai.
Yeah. So I like what the thoughts you're circulating here. So I want to ask you this: what's your goal setting process. I think that's really important to kind of get that actionable plan in place. So what is your goal setting process that you would, recommend to others?
Yeah, I think you need to, you need to decide what's the most important and what's going to bring you the most joy the quickest. So like I know people that have bucket lists. It's just, I want to learn these 10 recipes, right? I just want to
Yeah.
learn these 10. So that for that person, it's like, to me, I tell them, what's the first one you want to, what's the first you want to try? Right?
Yeah.
What's the one that would bring you the most joy of learning and figuring out? Oh, I want to learn how to make Spanish omelets. Fantastic. I love Spanish omelets. Let's go. So what do you need to do? Well, you need to find a recipe. You need to get some, go on the internet and learn a few things, go out and buy the ingredients and bring them home and try, and then try again, because you're going to fail the first time. So you got to try again and try again. And, it's hard to, my process is a little different. I try to stack things as much as possible. So right now I'm on a 3-month journey through Costa Rica, Spain, Italy, Israel, and London. And while I'm on this journey, I'm visiting all my friends that I met from the Camino, or a lot of them. And then
Mhm.
I'm also trying to write a book, and I'm also promoting this podcast. And I'm also, I try to stack things as much as possible, not without killing myself, without, having
Yeah.
freedom, because I also hired a virtual assistant before I left and said, okay, you handle all the, day-to-day crazy stuff that I don't even like anyways with the podcast, and we'll just keep it rolling. And so yeah, I mean, it's just, I think it's okay to stack things up, especially if there's synergy behind it, right? So when thinking about this trip, I knew I wanted to be like stationary in at least 2 cities for at least a month apiece, so that I could actually write. And so I picked cities that I knew weren't huge and have a ton of tourist attractions and all that kind of stuff. In Italy, that we're still close to people that I could go visit them and hang out, or they could come see me. So when I booked my Airbnbs, I booked them big enough so that people could come on the weekends and hang out. It's all just trying to stack those things up so that they're not competing with your time, but they're actually just overlapping and fitting like a bunch of Lego blocks that have a purpose, right?
Exactly. Yeah. You have to find that purpose in order to
Mhm.
really know what you want to do on this life, like in this life, and what you want, like from, like what do you want to be remembered as? I think that's a question a lot of people
Mhm.
ask. They're like, what do I want to be remembered as? And it's funny because I think oftentimes, I mean, I recently went to a funeral for someone that was close, and it's kind of interesting to see all those people come together and kind of share
Mhm.
stories, because then all of
Right.
a sudden it's like, wait, this is the type of person they really were. You even like, I was really close with this person, right? And it's just like, man, I thought I knew you, right? And it's like, no, you've
Mm.
lived a whole other life that I didn't even know.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
so nice to like come together in those big events and be like, oh my gosh, like this is the type of person you are. So I think we'll never really understand like the people around us, who they are. But I think at the same time, like it's a remarkable experience, like those events, as much as we don't like them. Sorry, were you
Yeah.
gonna say
No.
something there?
Just that, well, we talked earlier, and my dad passed away last week, and I'm going to his funeral this weekend, and I mean, people, I get tons of condolences from lots of different
Mhm.
people, and I just said, he wasn't perfect, but he was a good man. And I think that if we can get out of this world, I mean, he was a really good man, and he
Yeah.
really cared about people. He was never ingenuous. He was always authentically himself. And if you met him and knew him, he was your friend. He never met a stranger. He's just a good guy. Did he have problems? Did he have issues? Was he always the best father or grandfather? No, but he was a good guy. And my opinion is, if I can get out of here being at least 60% of as good of a guy as my dad was, I'll be okay, right? And so, and I am looking forward to this weekend of visiting with friends, and because a lot of who I am is my dad, right? It's the relationship building and all those things that he was really good at, that I sat back and he was an example for, that I take pride in, that those relationships of the people that are coming and that are going to be haven't seen for a long time. Those relationships that I've maintained are because of my dad. So they completely honor my dad because of without him, I wouldn't have those relationships. Yeah, I just, and he was a good salesman, and he was a poker player, and he was a lot of things, but the bottom line, he was a good man.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I didn't mean to like
That's all
have
right.
you share
No
that, but
worries.
it's yeah, I like that you mentioned that you're looking forward to it. I think sometimes we
Mhm.
often like, oh man, like this is a sad day, and it is, right? It's not
Yep.
fun, it's a
Yep.
heavy day, but at the same time it's enjoyable because you see, man, look how many lives this person's impacted. And like you said,
Yeah.
overall, most people, I believe that 99.9% of people are good, like
Mhm.
people. Like they're
Yeah.
just people out there just trying their best and trying to make the most out of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I want to drop the intelligent question of the day though.
Sure.
And that is, we've mentioned failure is kind of a requirement, but
Mhm.
I want to ask you this: how would you help someone deal with failure? What would be the best way to kind of pick themselves back up and go right back at their bucket list after they experience failure?
Yeah, it's what did you learn from it, right? It pains, it stings, it's no fun. But what did you learn from it? Where did you make the wrong choice, or where did you put too much emphasis, or where are those things, those learning moments inside of that failure that you can say, okay, so now we know not to do those things, so let's go again. Right? It's like the example of the cooking, right? You may have the heat on too high if you're cooking a Spanish omelet, and burn the sucker and not be able to turn it, and whatever it needs. And so the next time you turn the temperature down, right? And you keep going. And it's really of that process of, if you can't get to success without failure. You just really can't. You can't cross the item off without failure. You have to, you may get lucky, but but it's, and go back into the Star Wars thing about being an extra. I'm sure if I get to the point where I'm going to say, like, I'm going to cross this off, that I'm going to have a lot of no's, and I'm going to have a lot of people saying, oh no, I can't help you, or the issue is if you don't look at those things, okay, what did I do, what did I say that made them say no, right? How do I present myself in a way that they said no, and how do I present myself now so I can get a yes, right? So I can keep trying. Because if you I hate sports analogies, but you miss 100% of the shots you never take.
It's true.
And so it's failure is the key to success. You have to be willing to fail. And that's so hard in Western culture, because people want to see you fail, right?
Hmm.
And that's another piece of advice I would give, is that don't tell don't tell a lot of people about what's on your bucket list, right? Tell the people that care about you and want you to succeed, but don't just share it with everybody, because everybody wants to, like, not see you succeed. It's not that they necessarily not don't want you to succeed, but they know they can't do it themselves, or they won't do it themselves,
Hmm.
so they don't want anybody else to do it. So you have to be real careful on who you share those items with, and so that when you're successful and say, I did this, then people can't go, oh no, you can't do that. You take that away from them, right? You fail alone and succeed in front of everybody else. That's what I say.
That's, yeah. As much as that failure alone hurts,
Yep.
it almost builds you up. And like, again, you said it's a learning experience. It's really helpful. So then the next time you go around at it, you have a higher chance of success. You just
Yep.
keep going at it. And then eventually when you get that success, usually success speaks really loudly. So you won't have to do it on your own. Like someone is having a conversation, says, oh, I'm thinking of doing this. And then you're like, oh, wait, I've done that. Like I can, and
Right.
usually people that
Exactly.
I've met, most people I've met that have been successful, they genuinely want other people to experience the same as them. They're like, oh my gosh, like I've done this too. Like you've got to try this, right? They
Right.
almost get so excited to like see someone else just as interested in like what they are interested in. And
Oh yeah.
it's the coolest thing to see. So, I hate to wrap this up. You've been sharing great things today,
No
but you've
problem. It was
mentioned your
perfect.
podcast, you've mentioned other things. What's the best way people can reach out to you, find your podcast, find, your business,
Yeah.
anything like that?
Yeah, so the podcast is called the Crossing It Off Podcast. It's available everywhere, like everybody else's. It's you can even on Facebook mobile. You can listen to it on Facebook mobile app, and it's a weekly. It drops Friday mornings every Friday, and then if people and like I said, it's more about other people's crossing their stuff off than me. So if you want to follow me and what I'm crossing off my bucket list, and also make sure you get notifications about the show, you can go to crosser.offer at Instagram. And that's where I post what I'm doing and some of my adventures and those kind of things and some tips and stuff. So yeah, that's where you can find me online.
Yeah, sweet. Thank you for sharing that. I know definitely once I'm done with this interview, I'm going to be subscribing because this has been really fun. So Roger, thank you for coming on. I really enjoyed what you've had to share today.
Josh, thanks for having me. And when you get that jet, give me a call.
I will for sure. We'll be traveling the world for sure. I'm looking forward to it.
Let's go.
All right. So everyone, that is Roger Williams. As you can tell, he's a very intelligent person, has great things to share with you guys. I would challenge you guys to subscribe to his podcast and, subscribe to his message. Write your bucket list, get on it and go out there and cross off items on your bucket list. Stay tuned till next week. We have a great guest lined up for that week. See you guys next week, and let's get after it. Hey everyone, if you liked this episode and would like to hear more, be sure to hit that subscribe or follow button. We release a new episode every Wednesday for you guys to listen to. Thank you guys so much for the support that you give. We could not have done this without you guys. If you would like to be a potential guest on the show, check out intelligentconvos.com, and there should be a form there for you guys to fill out. Thank you guys again, and let's get after it.